All right, we have made it to week 4. Hard to believe, but a quarter of the college football season is already in the books. Jared Smith, Pete Fiutak here with you on lineups.com. We're going to break down some of the key games, give you some best bets for week 4. And Pete, it's crazy to believe that, a quarter of the season already in the books, but it is college football season. You blink and you miss it, man.
That's what people forget. And it's why, because I do college sports, honestly, I love nothing more than playoff NBA basketball and playoff in the NHL and even baseball. I haven't seen an inning of baseball all year. I'm going to watch every pitch of the playoffs because in the pros, these things go on for 7 months, and there's just no reason to watch a regular season NBA game because the playoffs are so good. College football, though, again, NFL's its own animal. You want to watch all of that. But college football, you're right. All of a sudden, we're a quarter of the way through this thing, and it goes by so fast.
Yeah, and I think this is the first week that I can recall where we have a lot of conference teams really dueling each other. And, this, I don't want to say it's the first week of the season. We had some decent games the first 3 weeks, but it does feel like once the calendar really starts to turn to October, now even in late September, this is when you really not only need to start paying attention, but we have a little bit of data to chew on, which I think makes the handicapping just slightly easier.
Yeah, it's a weird week, too, because you don't have the monster teams out there. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, I think Florida State. I don't think they're off, but I don't think they're playing very good. I should know that.
I think all of them are off. I know Penn State and Oregon both have a bye going into their game. Oh, no.
Well, and here's the really funky part.
Penn State has a bye before next week's game. Big game.
We say that we're halfway through or a quarter of the way through the season. Some of these schools, Oregon isn't in class yet. There are no students. They've already had some of these UCLA and some of these West Coast schools. They don't start until a week from now. So they're just getting up and going. So it's not even college sports for these guys quite yet.
Yeah. I guess we'll start with some of the key ranked versus ranked matchups this week. I think the first one right out of the gates, noon Eastern, should be a good one. Very early start time out there in Salt Lake City. Texas Tech at Utah. It feels like these are the two best teams in the Big 12, Pete. You get Utah laying 3 and a hook, depending on where you do your shopping. I think Iowa State maybe has a bit of an argument, but I think these are the two best teams in the Big 12. What do we make of this matchup?
Yeah, and this is where it goes to schedules, too, because this is a must-win. Because look at Iowa State's schedule. Iowa State's going 11-1. I mean, I think they miss both these teams. I mean, Iowa State doesn't play anybody who's all that great in the Big 12. My concern is I love Utah. It's been my call all off season. But the problem is I'm basing a lot of that love on that UCLA destruction in week 1. And obviously that was all fake. Yep. So Texas Tech's really good, but they haven't really done anything against anybody. They've got the team. They bought themselves all those transfers. Let's see if it pays off now. Just kind of a complimentary -3 spread on this. Utah at home. I generally do not like giving away points, especially this low. So I'm just going to go Utah outright. And if it's only 3 or even 2.5 in some spots, then just take it and go.
Yeah, it does look like 3 feels like the prevailing number. I saw some 3.5s earlier in the week. I think Texas Tech, based off of their performances, listen, a lot of people were doubting, buying a roster. What's that chemistry going to look like? They've covered 3 whopper spreads so far. And I know
not only the spreads, they are an over machine. That was my best bets of the last 3 weeks have all been Texas Tech and the over because they covered it pretty much by themselves. They're not going to do that in this, but I'm not in love with the 57.5 over because there might be some defense in this. But this could be a 34-31-ish type of shootout. So I like you. I don't love it, but I like it. I like Utah in the 3, giving away the 3.
Yeah, I think Utah just gets it done at home. Kyle Whittingham's got a very good winning percentage at Salt Lake City. It's a tough place to play. It's at altitude. Morton's been playing good football. Quarterback for Texas Tech, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. They've got a lot of different receivers to spread around. Again, this is one of the most expensive rosters in college football in Lubbock, Texas, of all places. I think their defense is playing well, but again, hard to really tell how good they are when they're playing Oregon State and Kent State and they're covering these 30, 40, 50-point spreads. I think Utah, when the pads really start to hit, right?
Yeah.
I think Utah is just a hair better, and this is a conference game, and I do think Whittingham at home feels like the right side, but 3 is... if you get a 2.5, maybe that's the spot.
No, it's not a half. If you go in or out, it's in the NFL. In college, it's either you're in or you're out. It's 3. Once you get to 7, then you start caring about the points. But 3 ain't a thing. So just do it. And if you're like Utah, and if it doesn't miss, it's your fault, not your fault. And that goes to your chemistry, by the way, too, where yes, if you do have a team full of new guys, that's why you play 3 easy games to get those warm-up time in. So we'll see. I will not be shocked if Texas Tech wins this, but again, I'm just not giving away any points.
No, toss-up game. I think if you have to play it, to our point, the slight edge goes to Kyle Whittingham at home, where he's got a really good winning percentage. All right, speaking of good winning percentages, Clemson typically has one, but they've dropped 2 of their first 3. We thought they were the best team in the ACC. I think it's fair to reassess that opinion. But now they're laying 17 to Syracuse, and when there's blood in the streets, Pete, it's time to buy. I feel like this is the bounce-back spot for Clemson this week.
I told you that Miami's the better team in this conference from the start. I never bought into Clemson. It's again, I bought into them being good. I did not buy them in losing to Georgia Tech and being 1-2. But you're right. It's Dabo's going crazy with that press conference where that goes to one key thing, one main difference between being a college coach and an NFL coach. Doesn't matter if you're Dabo, doesn't matter if you're a Mike Gundy, doesn't matter with Kirk Ferentz, don't matter how long you've been around. You can't lose in college football. You can be the madest of made men, if that's even a word, and you lose a game, and all of a sudden you're a bum. If you lose 2, well, you're out of here. But, man, that press conference that he was doing, he was like, well, if my help's not appreciated, lots of luck, gentlemen. And he's kind of saying, hey, look, I'm happy to be the new 2026 head coach of your University of Alabama Crimson Tide if you don't want me all around here. So it was a little defensive because he's taking criticism, because that is the thing about college coaches. They do not handle criticism at all, especially if they've been around as long as a guy like Dabo has.
That's one thing that betting analysts and college coaches have in common. Don't handle criticism well from the outside. And objectively speaking, and I dabble sometimes in the film study and some of the deep, cuts when it comes to analyzing these teams. Is he a good coach in terms of the modern game? Like, is he creating things for his team, creating opportunities, creating angles? Or is it just, hey, I got the players, go play and give them your all, like rah-rah? Like, what kind of coach is he at this stage of his career?
Well, the problem is part 2, but in a different sort of way, is that he doesn't play ball. Is that there's something to be said for saying, hey, kid, look, come to Clemson. We're not going to get your transfer coming in. You don't have to look over your shoulder. Develop in our system. You're part of our family. You can make mistakes. It's okay. You can spill. But the problem with that is you're not getting the transfers. You're Clemson. You should get, 5 or 6 guys who take your team up another level. And that's been the problem with the modern era, where before all the transfers were kicking in, he did have the guys who could handle everything. They don't have the defensive linemen they've had in the past. But over the last few years, they have not had the game-breaking wide receivers. They could go out and get some of those, and they're just not doing it. They got 1 or 2 transfers this year, but they just don't play ball when it comes to the transfer portal, and that's costing them now.
The irony is their receivers actually this year are pretty solid. Wesco actually played a fantastic game, 7 a buck 24 and a touchdown. They didn't have Antonio Williams last week.
Yeah.
And I actually did, because I wrote this up for the lineup site. I did lay 17 with Clemson. And when you look at Williams' numbers with Klubnik, there is a massive drop-off when Antonio Williams, this is an all-conference receiver, is not on the field. So 21 games, Klubnik, Williams together, they're averaging 34 points per game. Klubnik at 262 passing yards, 47 tuds, 12 picks. 11 games without Williams, Klubnik drops to 200 yards per game, 12 tuds, 8 picks, and the offense goes from 34 points per game to 24 points per game. So maybe Williams, and he was day-to-day last week, we're all day-to-day, maybe he's back this week and the offense explodes again.
Well, and by the way, because if you're not listening right now, you're losing money. I believe I did give Georgia Tech outright last week.
I had the 3.5 last week. I think it closed 2.5, but I thought
so
3 was
so this one, look, this is where things get right. Look, Syracuse, they still lead the nation. Steve Angeli leads the nation in passing,
but it's Colgate and UConn and negative game script against Tennessee.
If it was so easy, everyone would do it. Look at Penn State's. Right now, you're telling me that Texas wouldn't kill for a downfield pass against UTEP last week?
I don't know what's going on with Arch right now. That's
and Penn State a little more. So they've got something figured out. But I do think after all the stuff, I think Clemson comes out and they play a little bit better. I do think they cover that 17.5.
Yeah, Syracuse, especially if Williams is back. I think Syracuse, what I've seen so far, kind of feels like the Tennessee game script, right? And that game was at Syracuse. This one's down there in Death Valley. It just feels like Clemson will be able to overwhelm, and because now they're behind the 8 ball, right, Pete? Like when these teams, and this is kind of how I felt about Alabama last week, like you're behind the 8 ball with an early loss. Now you need the style points. So the bigger spreads don't deter me a lot.
Yeah, I don't think it's style points more for their own ego.
Sure.
Not for the college football
100%.
playoff.
Yep.
It's just to kind of be like, yeah, we're okay. We're good enough. We're smart enough. Everyone loves us. And that Alabama was an easy call last week. But this might be, I don't think Clemson's got that ability like Alabama has.
I agree.
But I do think that they come out and, like you said, I think it's close for a while. So if you're one of those late game bettors, and I think that's where you look ahead late in the game.
Really good one in the afternoon in Lincoln, Michigan and Nebraska. It feels like maybe the wrong team favorite here, right? Michigan's a slight favorite. I saw 2.5. There was a 3 out there, so you can get 3 with Nebraska. The reason that I'm just a little bit hesitant to say Michigan's the better team, and the market's telling you Michigan is the better team, road favorite in Lincoln, is because I don't know if Bryce Underwood's ready to go into a tough environment and win just yet as a freshman. What do you think about that?
I don't think the market's seen Nebraska play. Look, there's a handful of teams out there that, in South Carolina being among them, Texas Tech a little bit, where, okay, yeah, they're supposed to be good. I will buy it when it happens. When like South Carolina I never really liked, and all of a sudden you saw what happened last week in that ugly game against Vanderbilt. To be fair, Sellers got knocked out. Texas Tech, I'll believe it when I see it this week. And Nebraska, it's been cute. It's been fun. I'm waiting for the Michigan defense to show up, and this is huge. I mean, because if you look at what's next for Michigan, Michigan could afford that loss to Oklahoma. All was fine, but that's budgeting in this. Because if you look at the rest of Michigan's schedule, they're not losing again until they play Ohio State at the end of the season.
Who knows with that game lately, huh?
Of course. But you got to assume at some point that's going to swing around. So if you're Michigan and you win this game, you might not be that great, but you look again, what's ahead of this Michigan schedule? They're going to win out, and if they go into that game against the Buckeyes at 10-1, they could lose. They're 10-2, and they're in the college football playoff. So, like you said, it's kind of weird that we're talking on September 17th about this, but trying to go ahead, 2.5 months. This is a playoff game. Because you got to assume that right now, like you said, there's a playoff game for Clemson against Syracuse the rest of the way because they can't lose again. Every game for Notre Dame is going to be a playoff game the rest of the way. This is Michigan's playoff game because they win this, they're going to be favored in every single game until Ohio State.
And Nebraska, too. I mean, let's get their next 8 weeks here. Michigan State, Maryland, Minnesota, Northwestern, home to USC. And I think this USC team's a little better than people think. I think that'll be a fun game. Then at UCLA, I mean, that might be one of the easier wins of the year. And then they go to Happy Valley, second to last game of the year, and then their rivalry game against Iowa. I'll be honest, if they win this game against Michigan, they're staring at 11-1, 10-2 right in the face without really breaking a sweat.
Yeah, they're dropping those last 2, which is going to be the...
Wow, they're losing to Iowa at home.
It's Nebraska because it's Nebraska, and they're going to find a new and creative way to blow it. So I'm going to sheepishly say Michigan here. I'm not in love with it because I'm with you. If you love Nebraska, I'm not going to argue against it, but just Michigan, and just going to say, you know what, Nebraska, prove me wrong, and when it finally happens, we'll go with it.
I think at 3, you take Nebraska. Again, I'm looking at one.
You and your half points. I'm going to bust you out of this before the.
Don't
let a half point get in the way.
Numbers guy in me. I'm just too much of a nerd. I see that 3 out there. And
you
the rest
you
of the
are right.
27-24,
27-24, and you're annoyed. I get it.
27-24. I am very, very annoyed. If I'm catching 2.5. But listen, I think this does feel like a prove it game for that next contender in the Big Ten. We know Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State are legit. Like, I'm pretty convinced those 3 teams are legit.
Oh, Michigan.
I think there's a room for a 4th, and maybe this winner is the 4th.
Yeah, neither of these teams are winning anything. They're not winning the Big Ten or the college football playoff.
But 4 teams made the Big Ten in the playoff last year, right? Didn't 4 teams make it from the Big Ten?
Well, they can get see, this is what we call, you're better at this than I am, a professional segue, because there's this playoff game in the Big Ten, and then there's the one in Bloomington. You say, who's that 4th team? It's probably coming out of that game between those basketball schools.
So you think, and that is a really good segue, because when I looked at that market and I saw Indiana as more than a field goal favorite, Illinois, now, neither team has really shown us much against a quality opponent yet, but a lot of buzz preseason, Pete, was on this Illinois team. And you're telling me that they are a significant, and we're getting close to a touchdown here, underdog against the mighty mites of the Hoosiers. I know they had a great year last year, but this is a different Hoosier team with a different quarterback and a different system.
Yeah, I don't like anything about this. And to your point, I give Illinois credit for breaking Duke. I know Duke lost last week to Tulane, so no big whoop. But that was a good team with a good quarterback and a good defense. And that was a dangerous game, and they stepped it up when they had to. Illinois seems to have a way of just it's a veteran team. It's really well coached. But it's Illinois. It kind of goes back. I know this is really bad juvenile analysis, but same thing with Nebraska and Texas Tech and South Carolina. Illinois is one of those programs that just can't have nice things.
Prove it.
It's like, look, I've seen too many times when, they went to the Rose Bowl last year. Here's where Illinois turns it around. Well, and then they don't. Indiana has everything in place. That's a big number. So I'm going to do everything I just told you, not against, but I'm going to take Indiana, but give away the points because it's going to be close and a field goal. And that's me sheepishly saying I'm not buying Indiana yet. So if I had to, I'm going to say Indiana, but not to cover. And that way I sort of cover my butt a little bit by at least getting part of it.
Yeah, this is, you're on you got to take the 2x4 out of your ass here, sitting on the fence there, Pete. That's
no doubt. Exactly. I'll make a call, son.
That's a lot. The SEC's got one really good game and then one game in the non-conference that we'll get to last. Auburn and Oklahoma feels like the game of the week. These are two teams that I think are kind of right on the cusp. I trust Oklahoma a little bit more because of their defense and because I like what I've seen from Mateer, but I'll be honest, I don't love that Oklahoma offense. I like it. I'm excited about Mateer, but I still see some hero ball tendencies that gets him into trouble, I think, in tight games. Same thing with Jackson Arnold and Hugh Freeze. Like, it's just Hugh Freeze has this way of having turnover-prone quarterbacks. We haven't seen it yet from Jackson Arnold. He's been mostly a runner. This is a really interesting matchup with Oklahoma, I believe, laying just around a field goal.
Have you seen that? I've seen that 6.5 the last time.
Oh, excuse me. You're right. I was looking at the first half line. I'm sorry. -6.5. Oklahoma -6.5. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know what? It kind of gets lost. What has Hugh Freeze done? I mean, he beat Nick Saban a couple times and has this reputation of that. But his last year at Liberty was awful. He left Ole Miss, when it got bad. And so far at Auburn, this hasn't worked. They have the one good win over Baylor to start the season, and this is a better team. And you're right, Oklahoma's got a weird thing happening, especially with its running game. For some reason, Jay Knott's not been a part of it so far.
Yeah, what's up with that?
Nobody knows. It's an odd thing because he's an all SEC caliber guy, or at least he was supposed to be in the preseason call, and he's just not getting any work. And Mateer's playing well. I do think this is where I'm just going to fall for the basics, the home field. Not going to say revenge because that's not. I don't think anybody hates Jackson Arnold, but I do think that they're just going to take it to him. I think Oklahoma wins this pretty convincingly, and 6.5 seems like a lot, but it might be a relatively low scoring game. But I'm going to go with it. I'm just going to say Oklahoma and just give away the points.
I like Oklahoma too. Here's why. When I watched Auburn, the one thing I noticed, again, this is a new quarterback and a new system, and Hugh Freeze, I think, is a really smart play caller. But if you watch closely that South Alabama game, Hugh Freeze is running it all from the sidelines. And he's got his finger on the button, talking to Jackson Arnold right up until the snap, dissecting what coverage is and what to do. You're not going to be able to do that on the road in Norman when the crowd's screaming and yelling like crazy. So I think the check with me offense doesn't travel well.
Yeah.
And that's where I think things might get out of control for them.
And we've talked about this before. It's kind of one of my issues where, take this to the NFL, like Jake Browning or whatever. Well, he comes in and what do they tell him to do? Hey, just go for it. Just chuck it. And what happens?
Sure.
He looks great. Bryce Young at the end of the game last week, they were down. So what do? Hey, just start throwing it already. These guys are so painfully overcoached not to screw up. And so what are they doing? They're screwing up. And when are these guys great? The second you say, go out there and just be a quarterback. Don't worry about it. Just throw. All of a sudden, Browning threw a bunch of interceptions, but he won the game. Same thing with Arnold. It's like he's so overcoached just to not screw up that I think he's fine. Look, is Auburn better than Michigan? No. And Michigan lost 24-13 to Oklahoma. Yeah. I think you're going to see something kind of like that.
I agree. Jackson Arnold's been abused in the run game, too. I think he's got the second most carries on the team. Like he put on some weight in the offseason, but he is going to be battered and bruised. That Oklahoma defense, Brent Venables, I think that's the one part of this game where I'm not as high on Mateer. I think he's prone to the turnover. But that Oklahoma defense, like I felt the same way about the Michigan game, and it didn't matter because Oklahoma's defense was so good in that game that it never really factored in that Mateer kind of had a few of those throws that were a little bit like, whoa, what are you doing?
Kind of got lost, yeah. No, you've gotten this. Actually, what you have in this game of the coaches, now you mentioned Venables, you basically have the Ohio State offensive and defensive coordinators as the head coaches of this game because that's the type of thing where if you're in Ohio State, you could say, hey, you know what? Hugh Freeze is my OC and Brent Venables my DC, and you go on to win national championships.
True.
But head coaches, let's see. You know, again, this is a big moment because especially Oklahoma. We talked about this with the Michigan game a couple weeks ago. You can't lose this if you're Oklahoma with what's coming next. This is actually as easy as it gets for most. I think they get something crazy easy next, and then it's like look out. But yeah, Oklahoma has to win this one.
Yeah, Oklahoma's got Kent State next week, but then it's Texas at South Carolina, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Bama, Mizzou, LSU. I mean, the last 6 games are just, and really Texas too. Those last 7 games, they'll be lucky to win 3 of them.
That's just not fair. Well, I think they can come close. But you can't blow this one and have any hopes of making the college football playoff.
I agree. I think Oklahoma, because of that urgency, I think they win this game. And I'll take it a step further. If you're listening to this on a Wednesday or Thursday or Friday, lay the 6.5 now. I think we get the 7 by game time.
I wouldn't be shocked. That might be 7.5. Yeah.
Just a hunch. We get the 7 by game time. I think 6.5 is the right side. I'll lay it with Oklahoma. All right. We saw Florida battle last week. Listen, Florida's got that upside that if they play, especially defensively, if they hold on to their butts, they can still battle in the SEC. But you can't throw 5 interceptions and have a touchdown call back on a holding penalty and expect to compete with a team like LSU.
Yeah, who are you going to trust, me or your lying eyes? I hate this. I mean, because I'm with you. Miami's been great. I mean, they beat Notre Dame. They're like, oh, no, look out, South Florida. Oh, no, they just, drop-kicked that without a problem. Carson Beck is still underappreciated.
I think he's winning the Heisman. I honestly do.
I think he might be the number 1 pick in the draft.
I totally agree. I think he's winning the Heisman Trophy.
This team is for real. It is Miami, and they always seem to find ways to gack it at some point.
Yes.
And I'm not going to say they're going to look ahead to next week's game against Florida State.
Well, they have a bye, so they get a week off.
But
I think they dropped the hammer on Florida this week. I honestly do. The line's about 7.5.
You know what? I'm with you. I can't. Miami's looked too good. I'm not buying into Florida at all. I'm not buying into Lagway. And it's, you know what happens with Florida like this is like when they do have those games when they kind of play well, like the Georgia game last year where you're like,
and
oh,
like
wow.
last week when they were in that game for most of it.
And then they're not. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you're in this. And then all of a sudden it's like, oops.
It feels like they emptied the tank last week. Like they were fighting for Napier last week. They still came up short. I don't know if they can do it 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, and it's especially in a game like this. But you're right, that defense, again, we talk about how you can't lose a game. You can't obviously look bad either because Texas and LSU, you have the head coaches going crazy because they're getting asked about their offenses because the defenses they're playing are pretty good. Florida's defense is pretty good, but I think like I said, go with Miami. There's part of me that thinks this is where Florida shows up, but if they show up, it means everything clicks. That Tennessee game, I think it was last year, was a shocker where they just came out and said enough is enough and they looked great. Yeah, it's there, but I'm going to go Miami and just give away the points.
I'll make a bold statement here on the show. I think Miami is a legit national title contender. I don't think it's ACC stinks. We should downgrade Miami.
Yeah.
I think their offensive line is legit. Yep. I think Beck is as good as it gets. I think their running game is solid. They've got elite receivers on the outside. I agree with you on Cristobal. In a tight game, he has tight sphincter syndrome sometimes. But I think the offense and Beck kind of cancels that out a little bit.
It does help when you have a quarterback who's as good as that, and with an NFL offensive line. Like the one thing if you might dog Cristobal about something, that dude knows how to coach offensive line.
Oh, they've got their. I was doing their film study this week. Their right guard and their right tackle Francis Mayaga, right tackle, right guard, Inez Cooper, 6'6", 350. I think both those guys are first-round picks.
Yeah, not just first round, top 5 maybe. I mean, they're that good. I mean, so I think it just depends. We know what's the total on this sucker, because I can't imagine 51.5. It's not a lot, but
no, it's pretty low. If
pretty
Florida's
low,
defense quits, I think Miami could drop 40 on this team easily.
Ooh.
Easily.
I don't think Florida's defense quits. I
wouldn't be shocked after they played. I mean, they forced LSU to punt 7 times.
Yeah, but they could. But that defense could quit, and the final score could be 30-7. You know, so
it's a good point.
So I'm going to just flat. You're right. Make a stand, son. I'm going to say Miami give away the points and under on this 51.5.
Yeah, I think Miami is probably one of my favorite plays of the week. I think they're making you pay that premium on the 7.5, and it's going to deter some people because it's SEC versus ACC, right? Everyone loves the SEC. I get that. But I felt like Florida emptied it last week. Like, they heard all the doubters after the USF game, and they rallied, and they played well. Like, honestly, if it wasn't for the turnovers, they probably win that game. But I think Lagway, the lack of practice time, and the fact that I don't know if if Florida can get to that level again in a consecutive week, it feels like the snowball effect for Miami's offense might be the factor here.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be a fun one. And that's going to be the one we're going to watch, because you look at the late afternoon, late evening games. It's not a lot of star power there. I mean, you have the late night Michigan State USC game, which is going to go till 3 a.m. East Coast time, but. Everything else, that's going to be the one everyone focuses on, and I think that will get the attention. I think you are going to get a Miami team that's going to step up and show itself. So, I
agree. Any other odds and ends this week? I don't have a ton on the card. You get you get Apple Cup, you get Civil War. I don't know if we're allowed to call it that. Oregon State, you get Washington State.
Yeah.
It feels like the favorites roll there, right?
Oh, dear God, yeah. I think Apple Cup, Washington. Remember, Washington lost in painful fashion last year.
Revenge Apple Cup.
In brutal fashion. I think this year they run through the tape. They made the mistake of not going off last year. I think that is a very easy Washington win. Oregon, I think Thunder dunks on Oregon State. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. Missouri, I know Sellers is it'll be interesting.
Do we think Sellers plays? I saw Pete Thamel drop a news bomb that he might play. I feel like he's not going to play, and that was just
it was started at 3.5, and then it became he might not play and went up to 10. So as you're hearing this, it's probably going to go down. Until otherwise, I would just go with South Carolina. I think Missouri wins. I don't bind them. Missouri's one of those teams that it gets its one pretty decent win, and then it kind of gets a good record. And I know they're better now than they were in the recent history, but I'm not quite buying. So I don't think South Carolina wins, but I certainly think 10, definitely 10.5, at least right now. Pretty good. 2 late night games. I love Cal against San Diego. San Diego State's
Cal looks really good. That quarterback whose name I can't pronounce is fantastic.
Yeah,
AKS.
Yes, and that crazy enough, you want to talk about your real deep sleepers to make the college football playoff.
Oh, they can make it with that schedule. They don't play anyone.
Cal misses everybody. Yes. That Minnesota game last week was massive. Getting that win, that was their toughest game yet.
I think they play SMU also.
Yeah, they're okay, but not great. Sure. And that's a home game for Cal.
I think that's their toughest game. I think that's the only game the rest of the year. Oh, no, I think they go to Louisville, too. That might be a game where they're done.
There might be one, but there ain't two. They could go
11-1. They really should if they win all the games they're favored in. Actually, they don't play SMU, but they do go to Louisville.
Okay.
Oh, no, they do. They play SMU at home last week of the year.
I thought so, yeah. That's last week with everything on the line when people actually care in Berkeley about this. Remember, San Diego State couldn't come close to stopping Washington State, who got destroyed last week by North Texas. Yeah. My kid, my money go to San Diego State. I love this program. But I just don't.
I'm sure that's expensive out of state tuition.
I don't think that they're covering that 12.5. And I will go with my kid and my other money. I was there last week watching that Michigan State game against Youngstown State. Michigan State isn't that good. Nick Marsh, their star receivers, is probably out. They lost a couple guys on the line. They might have a backup running back coming in. They're plucky. If you see the line go from 14.5 up, if you can get it at 17.5, I think it's, again, late night game. You have to stay up super, to 2:30 in the morning. Seriously, no joke on the East Coast. I think USC turns it on against Michigan State late, 'cause I just don't think this Michigan State defense, despite the stats which say otherwise, Michigan State's defense cannot hang with USC, and USC's pass rush is going to destroy Aiden Childs in this Michigan State attack.
Miami's got the highest EPA per dropback in the country right now.
It's USC. It's at some point it's going to click, and it is. It's
They've
like
got dudes. They can recruit.
It's USC. They're supposed to be good. Lincoln Riley's a good head coach. I mean, eventually this thing's going to click. So again, late night things to like. Again, Cal and USC, I would go with.
Yeah, I agree. I bet over 7.5 wins on USC. That was one of my stronger positions in the offseason. I felt like that was a pretty good number.
Not bad.
Yeah, we'll see. Should be a fun one. I think they'll get their 4th win this week as a big favorite against Michigan State. All right, Pete, great stuff as always. Excited for week 4, and we will see y'all again next week.
We just made you Christmas out there for America. What else can we do? I mean, we can give so much.
That's Pete. I'm Jared.